Good morning, everyone. GP Vegas is coming up next month, so I thought we would take a look at an old school deck tech on the channel today. It is a mono blue Merfolk deck that I built during the pandemic. Didn't get much play out of it, so I thought I would kind of dust it off, take a look at it on the channel today, and explain it a little bit, and then test it out and see how it would do. And if it's functional, I'll take it with us to Vegas. We can play it. So as I mentioned, it's mono blue. We brought out the GP Minnesota, Minneapolis, MagicCon playmat, which will match the colors of this deck nicely. It's a 60 card old school Eternal Central rules deck running mostly revised and 4 horsemen cards. So it's super budget. The most expensive card in this deck is like $10 or $15. So you could build this deck on your own if you wanted to for less than $100 pretty easily. So we're gonna run basic islands. This is our favorite artwork by Mark Poole that we play in Alpha all the time. We're gonna run 24 copies of basic island here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. We're not even gonna mess with strip mine or Mishra's Factory in this deck. It's just gonna be straight up blue land. They would have to be playing green, and was it Hurricane? Is Hurricane destroys islands? That's probably the only card that would stop this deck. We've got boomerangs for some tech. We have a Brain Geyser for card draw. Let's put the spells down here. We have clones because we're gonna clone some creatures. We have Dance of Many, which will come into play in a second. We also have Energy Flux, 4 copies of Energy Flux. We're not gonna play any artifacts in the main deck, and I'll show you why just right now. So we have 4 copies of Energy Flux for 2 colorless and a blue. It's an enchantment, and all artifacts in play now require an upkeep cost of 2 colorless, in addition to any other upkeep cost they may have. If the upkeep cost for an artifact is not paid, the artifact must be discarded, and then we're gonna combo that with Drafna's Restoration. So this is a really cool card from Antiquities. It's really inexpensive. I think you can pick it up for like 50 cents. It's a sorcery for 1 blue. You take any number of artifacts of your choice from target player's graveyard and place them on top of that player's library in any order. So what you do here is you play the Energy Fluxes if you're facing someone playing the deck or robots or a Mishra's Workshop Factory deck. This Energy Flux will prevent them from keeping their artifacts in play. If they have a couple artifacts, those artifacts will go to the graveyard, and then you can cast Drafna's Restoration, which will put, you could say all of those artifacts and put them on the top of their deck, so that when they're drawing cards, all they're drawing is artifacts, which they probably can't play that turn, or if they do, they're gonna lose them anyway. So basically kind of stalls them out, so they can't cast creatures or spells because their hand's gonna be full of the artifacts that they lose to Energy Flux. And you're not affected by Energy Flux because you're not playing any artifacts in this deck. All right, so I think there's a bunch of creatures in here too. We've got Fish Liver Oil, which is from Arabian Nights. These are the light version with the lighter casting cost, so they match the colorless mana symbol. The other cards, probably Energy Flux. Energy Flux was also printed in Antiquities. This is the revised version, much cheaper than the Antiquities version, but the Antiquities version is still inexpensive as well. If you wanted to black border your deck, you could do that. But Fish Liver Oil is from Arabian Nights. It's a creature, and it gains Island Walk ability. It's creature enchantment, sorry. So this gives any one of your creatures Island Walk ability. It also gives any one of your opponent's creatures Island Walk ability. So if they had Urnam Jin, or if they had Savannah Lions, you could enchant their creature and give it Island Walk. And yes, they could Island Walk and attack you. However, you're gonna run 4 copies of Merfolk Assassin from the Dark. Super inexpensive card. Art by Dennis Detweiler. you summon this Merfolk for 2 blue. It's a 1/2 Merfolk, and you tap Merfolk Assassin, and it destroys target creature with Island Walk. So it's kind of like a Royal Assassin, but you give your opponents Island Walk creatures, and then you tap Merfolk Assassin to destroy those creatures. Now you're also going to play 4 copies of Lord of Atlantis, which is a Merfolk for 2 blue. It's a 2/2 Merfolk, and all Merfolk in play gain Island Walk and +1/+1 while this card is in play. So your Merfolk will pump each other. You'll also pump this Merfolk Assassin. So for every Lord of Atlantis that's in play, each Merfolk Assassin will be a 2/3. So these will help keep your Merfolk Assassin in play longer. And then the last thing you can do to make sure that you can attack is you can drop magical hacks, which are interrupts, and they change the text of any card being played or already in play by replacing one basic land type with another. For example, you can change Swamp Walk to Planeswalk. You can also change Swamp to Island. If your opponent is playing black land or any other color land and they're not playing blue, you can just magical hack it, and then this interrupt goes to your graveyard. They would have to counter magical hack. They can't disenchant a Phantasmal Terrain. Phantasmal Terrain also costs 2 blue. Magical hack only costs 1 blue. These were printed at the rare slot in Revised, and Phantasmal Terrain was printed at Commons. So that's the basic idea of the deck. I thought I had Dance of Many. Did I not have Dance? I did have Dance of Many. Oh, I put those down here, but I didn't talk about them. Okay. Dance of Many is another card that creates copies of Lord of Atlantis. It's an enchantment for 2 blue. When Dance of Many is brought into play, you choose a target summon card, probably Lord of Atlantis, and you put a token creature in play and then treat this as if you've just brought an exact copy of target summon card into play. So you could play this for 2 blue, which is the same casting cost as Lord of Atlantis. Create a copy. We'll use these copy tokens. Copy Lord of Atlantis. And then if token creature leaves play, destroy Dance of Many, or if you do not pay the 2 blue during your upkeep, Dance of Many is destroyed. The other thing you can do is you have these 4 copies of Boomerang in your hand. It is an instant for 2 blue, and you return target permanent to owner's hand. Enchantment on target permanent is destroyed. So you could either, instead of paying the 2 blue to keep Dance of Many in play, you can pay 2 blue to Boomerang it, bring it to your hand, get rid of the copy, the token, and then cast Dance of Many again on your next turn. So that essentially copies the Lord of Atlantis, creates another Lord of Atlantis, which would pump your Merfolk Assassin an extra 1/1. So your Merfolk Assassin would now be a 3/4, or multiply that by how many Lords of Atlantis you have in play, or how many copies you have in play. And lastly, we have 3 copies of Clone, which can copy Lord of Atlantis. So you could have 4, 5, 6, 7 Lord of Atlantis in play. Pump your 1/1, your 1/2 Merfolk Assassin to maybe like a 6, 7, something fun like that. Let's go ahead and give this a quick shuffle, shall we? We're gonna do a Goldfish today. I don't remember if this is an easy deck to pilot, but it seems pretty straightforward. Shut your opponent off from casting artifacts. Stack the top of their deck with artifacts so they have nothing to play while you build up an army of Merfolk, and then Island Walk for the win. And then I also have a couple ideas for the sideboard, which I'll show you too, in case you want to swap out a few things in this deck. There is no old school championship this summer in Vegas. They're going with, I think, like a Wilds of Eldraine championship, where people bring constructed decks, they open up sealed decks. There's a limited version. They have to maybe compete in like a triathlon of Magic the Gathering to see who is the best player in the world. I think that person will win maybe $10,000 prize money. And then the rest of the top 8 will also win prizes. We are not going to compete in that. We don't have the skills to play the modern cards, but we will bring an old school deck or 2 to play on the side. We'll also record some of those matches for content for the channel so you can see what it is. All right, that's pretty well shuffled. I'm guessing we'll probably just get a handful of islands. Roll to go first. Let's say the opponent takes it. We'll see if we have a keepable hand here with 7 cards. We have islands, we have spells, we have Lord of Atlantis. I think that's pretty good. Dance of Many, fish liver oil. Let's do this. Let's play a card. On our turn, we'll draw first. We'll go second. We'll play a land. We'll play an island. And we'll go ahead and magical hack. Let's say they are playing mono black. We can magical hack their swamp, so now they have an island. So we're ready to island walk if we need to. Pass the turn, untap, draw. Draftman's Restoration is pretty cool. We'll play a second island, and we're going to go ahead and cast our Lord of Atlantis. We're going to tap 2, blue, Lord of Atlantis, number 1. Pass the turn. Untap, draw for turn. We got another island. Let's play this island. We have 3 islands in play. We can copy. Let's do that. Let's tap 2. We'll go ahead and Dance of Many is an enchantment, so we're going to copy this Lord of Atlantis. We have 2 Lord of Atlantises now, so we have 2 3/3 Merfolks. And they give each other island walk because we turned their swamp into island. So we can attack with this Lord for 3 damage and put him at 17. Pass the turn. All right, on our turn, we're going to untap. On the upkeep, we are going to, let's not pay this 2 blue. So Dance of Many goes away. Same thing for the copy that goes away. Now we have a 2/2 Lord of Atlantis. Draw a card. It's another island. Let's play this island. Let us, we could give one of their creatures island walk. We could just do that too. Let's tap 2. We're gonna go ahead and fish liver oil our Lord of Atlantis. So now we have island walk anyway, and it's a 2/2. We can go ahead and do our pay 2 blue. We have another copy of Dance of Many, which will copy this Lord of Atlantis. Now we have a 3/3 and a 3/3. And we'll move to combat. We'll swing with this Lord of Atlantis for 3, put them at 14, pass the turn. On our turn, we will untap. We'll pay the 2 for this Dance of Many to keep this copy in play. We'll draw a card. We have a magical hack, so we'll play an island for turn. We could play Draftman's Restoration. We're also going to save it, I think, and save the magical hack in case we need it. Now we can move to combat with 2 3/3 island walkers, so they'll take 6 damage. Put them at 8. We'll pass the turn, untap, draw. We'll pay the 2 for the Dance of Many to keep the copy in play. We'll draw a card. We got another Draftman's Restoration, which isn't helpful yet. We can tap island. We can magical hack one of their lands to make it another basic land. If they're playing dual lands, and let's say they were playing Underground Sea, which was black and blue, we could make the swamp part of that an island, so they would just have a really expensive island in play. So Draftman's Restoration, we're going to keep in the hand. We don't have Energy Flux. I don't know what artifacts they're playing yet, so we're not able to see this combo in full effect yet, but we will attack with these 2 3/3 Lord of Atlantis island walking creatures and do 6 damage to put them at 2. We'll untap. Let's just say we're not going to pay the Dance of Many, so this copy goes away, but we still have a 3/3 Lord of Atlantis that can island walk because of fish liver oil. We'll draw a card, and we get a Merfolk Assassin. That is perfect. We're gonna tap 2 blue to play Merfolk Assassin, which is now a 2/3 because of the Lord of Atlantis. And we're just gonna attack with this 2/2 Island Walker for the win. So that's a pretty simple budget Merfolk deck. You could also get lucky if they're playing artifacts. When you have Energy Flux out on the board and hit Drafna's Restoration and make them discard their artifacts. You could also boomerang their creatures to their hand. You could probably also put Black Vice in this deck if you think there's a way to get a bunch of cards in their hand and take damage by having cards in hand. I'm using these copies as the Lord of Atlantis copies. Some possible cards in the sideboard. It's a transformational sideboard, as I mentioned earlier, but you could play 3 copies of Blue Elemental Blast to prevent red decks from beating you. You could control magic in case they're on some sort of colorful creature deck. 4 copies of Copy Artifact, which you would bring in. You would take out Energy Fluxes if they're not playing artifacts. You could also take out Drafna's Restoration, bring in 4 copies of Copy Artifact, and then artifacts of your own. So you could bring in cards like War Barge from the Dark for 4 colorless. You pay 3 colorless to target creature gains Island Walk until end of turn, and if War Barge leaves play, creature is buried. So you could give all of your non-island walking creatures Island Walk. You could also give your opponent's creatures Island Walk and then tap them with Assassin to destroy them. You could manage 2 copies of Mana Short since you're not playing Time Walk. Mana Short sort of functions as a Time Walk. Soul Ring, which is great, and then of course you could copy artifact Soul Ring if you wanted to and have like 5 copies of Soul Ring on your side. Skull of Orm is an interesting card from the Dark for 3 colorless. You pay 5 colorless and tap Skull of Orm to bring 1 enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. So this would be a way to get Dance of Many back to your hand if you needed it. Steal Artifact. So if you're playing Energy Flux's main board, there's a chance your opponent would maybe sideboard out some artifacts game 2. But you could always bring in Steal Artifact if you wanted to go get some of their artifacts, and then also copy those artifacts once you get it online. And the last land, the fancy land, I think is Maze of Ith, just because we're playing a lot of cards from the Dark in this deck. You can tap Maze of Ith to untap an attacking creature. This creature neither deals nor receives damage as a result of combat. So if you had a bunch of creatures on the battlefield, you could untap their creatures so that you wouldn't have to block if you did not want to. But that's the basic premise of the deck. It's mostly a Merfolk deck. Not a true Merfolk deck because we're not playing just tribal, but it does have the Drafna's Restoration combo in there. Let me know what you think. If you've played this with Energy Flux, it's kind of a stellar tech to play with these 2 cards, putting all of their artifacts on the top of their deck, slowing them down so that you can build this Merfolk army. Let me know what you think in the comments. Should I bring this deck to Vegas? Maybe in another video I will do a simulator and test this deck out against another budget deck. But appreciate everybody for watching today. Subscribe, like, do all the things that helps support the channel, and we'll catch you in another video. Thanks everyone.